an article from Le Parisien, one of the major daily in France, saying, well, if you have a child and you choose not to have one, you can spare the money to have 8 dogs. And so they made the calculation to say, well, one child, you could have 8 dogs, not 7, not 9, 8. I don't know how did they manage to obtain this figure, but it's just crazy. Nobody is questioning the consequences of such personal choice at the national level.
So now coming to something that we actually haven't had a good chance to discuss on the podcast before, which I'm really excited, and Helene's joining us, and partly for this reason. You wrote a great article taking a look at and giving a chance to explore some of these themes that are very, very popular in the kind of contemporary discussion about demography, features in the discussion of the so-called war between the sexes, features in the discussion about immigration and all the rest of it. But I wanted to leave you to explain the article you wrote and how you're thinking about this topic.
Yeah, I observed a movement that is growing in importance, and the publishing houses, especially in France, but I guess that the same movement can be observed elsewhere. We've had many books in the same year concerning the no-kid movement, giving testimonies from young women saying, well, it's not a good idea to have kids nowadays. So the problem is that in the meantime, 2 major problems appear. The first one is the publication of the fecundity rate that has never been so low, especially in France, which was a country where it resisted pretty well. We are now at 1.62, which is extremely low. It is the figure that we had just after World War I, so which is usually considered to be the lowest period in terms of fecundity and birth rate in French history. And at the same time, of course, we've had all those discussions concerning the pension reform. And if we put all these information together, you can see that there is a big contradiction, because people are claiming, women are claiming the right to have no child, but they are only on a very either individual point of view. It's my personal development. If I want to be free, if I want to free myself from the obligations of the patriarchate, etc. I mustn't have kids. And you have a macro structural reflection. It's bad for the planet. It's bad for environment to have kids. But there is an intermediate level that is totally not considered by this one. And this is the national level, the level of a community, of a society. What do we do in country where you have to think about the future, and not only the future of the planet, the future of your family, the future of your nation, and that is totally lacking in the reflection of these books. And what is terrible is that we also saw some articles in the French press pushing forward these books and saying, well, it costs us too much to have a child, especially I quote in my piece on the EuropeanConservative.com an article from Le Parisien, one of the major daily in France, saying, well, if you have a child and you choose not to have one, you can spare the money to have 8 dogs. And so they made the calculation to say, well, one child, you could have 8 dogs, not 7, not 9, 8. I don't know how did they manage to obtain this figure, but it's just crazy. And of course, nobody is questioning the consequences of such personal choice at the national level in terms of course, pension reforms, in terms of the atmosphere of society.
Yeah, and I mean, John, this is a favorite topic of the MCC Brussels staff when we're either at lunch or in the kind of bars of Brussels. But yeah, what do you make of it?
Well, the no-kid trend isn't just the rejection of motherhood. It reflects, I think, a broader social anxiety, an anxiety about economics, an anxiety about climate change, an anxiety about personal autonomy. Will this affect my career?
And about war, too. Now it's a new topic.
It's about war now.
Anxiety.
Yes.
Yeah.
So this is piling on. In the past, children were seen as an integral part of us moving into adulthood, of taking responsibility, of looking after the next generation. Children were seen as a good. I noticed from your article, the number of items are going to cost you money. They'll interrupt your career. They'll ruin your life. They're ruining the planet. This idea that children are actually seen in such a negative way, and that's reinforced in society, is really worrying. I'm in favor of personal autonomy and personal decision-making, but I think the way children are being viewed and seen as a catastrophe, as opposed to a blessing and a joy is really something that we need to be worried about. And I think we need to start a broader conversation as to why people are not having children. I think, sometimes for women, it can be hard in your 20s to find a guy that wants to settle down and wants to have a child with you. It's not just a matter of all of these extraneous issues out there, but even just finding a partner that sort of, let's commit to that. Let's commit to the project of being together. Hopefully we're going to stay together, as opposed to being in single parent families, which so many Europeans now are in single parent families. So when a woman in her 20s says, I might want to have a child, she's thinking to herself, I'll probably end up bringing up this child on my own. And it's those type of obstacles, those type of conversations I think we need to start having about how we can create an environment in which children are seen as good and that people can form long-lasting relationships.
I perfectly agree with you because I appreciate this notion of personal autonomy. You cannot force people having child. And I don't like this feminist argument saying, people want to take control of my body. They want to force me to have children. Nobody's saying that. No. That's just stupid. But you're right to say that there is a true problem about loneliness and the question of being single. And the main problem is not having child or not having child, but being a couple. Mm-hmm. And once you're a couple, thinking about having child. And I was mentioning in my piece this figure in Paris, so the capital of France. Almost 2/3 of the households are households of single people. Mm-hmm. So how do you want to have children in such conditions? So that's the first step, in fact, in the reflection of why no kid movement is growing so fast.
Because what changed though in relationships? That relationships are not being formed on the basis of, marriage used to be a religious commitment that you would make, many people made to another person. But something's changed in the nature of relationships, that relationships are like, we're going to be together for a couple of years. That's not a good plan for a woman who's looking at a child who's going to be around at least until they're 23, with my own experience.
Yeah, for sure. And I don't consider that I can build something because I have many personal achievements that are higher in values than collective achievements, such as a family and having children, etc. And there is no signal sent by the society about the fact that these collective achievements are higher than personal ones. And of course, you cannot consider that you are going to have children for your pension, but you have to consider this question of the transmission of generation. And it's positive to say, I like something in the world. I like my environment, I like my country, I love my culture, I like my food, I like my wine, especially if I'm French, and I want that to survive. And if I have children, it's an act of love, of course, for the man with which you are, but it's an act of love for all these things that you consider that should survive after you. If you do not want to have children, it's just that you consider that all the things that are around you are not worth it being transmitted. So that's a serious lack of confidence in the society as a whole.
And I mean, you both mentioned, and you do a good job of bringing out in that piece, that the way in which you both mentioned personal autonomy, as if, and that's kind of praised in some reasons as what people are too autonomous or they're enjoying their freedom too much. And I always find that interesting because it doesn't seem to me that what they're really doing is personal autonomy. Personal autonomy is about building projects in the world, having success in the world, doing things, making relationships, forming yourself through your experiences with other people. It looks a lot more like a kind of sometimes frightened narcissism almost, where you're afraid of commitments, you're afraid of
confidence.
Yeah.
It's lack of confidence. Yeah, but it's also considering that once you have when you have a child and once you have children, you stop living. Yeah, there are many things you can do. And so you are not going to be able to travel to New Zealand. You are not going to be able to stay at the nightclub till 3 a.m. in the morning, etc. But because there is no speech from the society saying, you are going to do other things that are nice too. But there is no positive input on what you do when you have a family. And many people say, my life is going to stop as long as I have children, because they don't see anything positive in the fact of experience something different than this personal autonomy.
Well, that's why as much as it's talked about as a crisis of children and young people, it's as much a crisis of adulthood. Because if people have no conception that adulthood means something more than just being like a perpetual university student, going out and drinking lots and staying up late, then why would you ever want to grow up? It's as much a problem of growing up, isn't it, John?
Yeah, it is. The Peter Pan generation, that people don't grow up. I think children do help us grow up. I think children do help us take responsibility and take our proper place as adults within the world. And I think that, we should be having more conversations about the joys of having children, the importance of it, and how your life doesn't end. A new life begins.
Yeah, of course. And you don't have to get rid of your old life either. I have 4 children, and yet I still go to the restaurants. I still go to the cinema. I still travel. And I'm not going to stop because I have these children. I'm just going to do things differently. And this differently is not conscious in the mind of many people. So they don't consider that it's possible. Perhaps another explanation would be the myth of the perfect parenthood. If you are not totally dedicated to your child, you're a bad mother or you're a bad father. And you cannot consider that children are part of life. They are essential, but they're just one part of your life. And you do not have to sacrifice your own life to your children. And you don't have to get rid of your life because you have children. Children are part of your life. It's not another one.